what will happen in 2022 again, some new governors will come to certain departments of the county. They will find that certain staff were put in the wrong place, or perhaps were put as gatekeepers of the outgoing governor in a particular position and so forth. They must have that flexibility to, Mr. Speaker, transfer staff across departments of the county. And particularly when they are working around institutions or departments that affect the functioning of the county government, and particularly that will eventually affect the governor. Mr. Speaker, many governors here are now in court because some procurement officers, Mr. Speaker, participated on matters corruption. Of course, we are told some of them benefited directly. But, Mr. Speaker, we cannot now then force governors and tell them, you must stick with that guy in that procurement department when they Mr. Speaker, have requested the county public service who will independently assess certain requests that come from the office of the governor on where to deploy staff for effective management of the county government. So while I appreciate the faith of Mr. Mutembei, having faith with the Senate, I also want to say that we must not stifle the right of county governments to run their affairs independently without micromanaging by the Senate. And as I say so, Mr. Speaker, let me just say in one sentence. The question of corruption is serious, and procurement matters. Mr. Speaker, I wish we can be able as a Senate to ensure that I saw governors making some noise about our county public accounts committee. I expect the chair, Professor Ongeri, who is an experienced public servant, Mr. Speaker, to give reasoned response to the weighty allegations, Mr. Speaker, that came from the Council of Governors, that, Mr. Speaker, our committee is compromised in the manner in which they deal with governors. Mr. Speaker, we need as a Senate to acquit ourselves of these accusations and to deal with those governors, Mr. Speaker, regardless of, Mr. Speaker, whether we know them, they come from our political party. The nation is watching us to, Mr. Speaker, deal with those governors fairly and, Mr. Speaker, without favor. Because it is becoming now apparently clear that certain governors, Mr. Speaker, are not facing the consequence of the law because they are politically correct. And this Senate, Mr. Speaker, must not sanctify and clean. Mr. Speaker, must not be part of the dry cleaning process that some governors are taken through that has become very difficult to hold them accountable. And I want to request our party leaders out there, don't be party to these processes where governors come through your offices to look for cleanliness, Mr. Speaker, and to avoid, Mr. Speaker, facing the music and facing the law. Just because they sing and shout and finance your political parties, let them be held accountable by the people of Kenya and for the benefit of the people of Kenya. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Kangata.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, allow me to associate myself with the sentiments of Senator Murkomen. I am not so sure whether this petition meets the threshold required for such kind of a petition being admitted in this honorable House. And the reasons are, number one, personally on the face of it, it appears this is a purely employment matter. The issues raised therein ought to have been canvassed in an employment court. But again also, I don't see any disclosure of any actionable issue in the said petition, with all due respect, Mr. Speaker. I reiterate that I get the impression that the petitioner is complaining being deployed in another department. I guess that is an administrative issue. There is no prejudice, he has not been fired at all. And therefore, I don't get the impression, what's the complaint for me? And again, when you see a person who really wants to stick into procurement department, you get the impression this person is not acting bona fide, most likely is acting malafide. Thank you.
Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.
Speaker, at the time when we got a petition, somebody suggesting we should remove the cockerel and part of the coat of arms, I raised this concern. And I said, either we agree to set up a committee to check the quality of petitions in terms of whether or not they meet the threshold, irrespective of irrespective of the question that every person has a right to file petitions, Mr. Speaker. Because this sort of petition, Mr. Speaker, other than the question of jurisdiction, the petition itself and the suggestions that they are making is what Senator Irungu Kangata is saying, that a person will be transferred from one office to the other, they will come here. And Mr. Speaker, even when we admit such petitions, governors then get the opportunity to say we are trying to micromanage them. And it gets worse when you have questions like the ones raised about the Public Accounts Committee. And Mr. Speaker, I personally want to hear, and I've told the chair who is sitting next to me, that the first time a committee of the Senate has been accused of extortion has happened in 2020. Extortion is a criminal offense. Mr. Speaker, other than making a statement on the floor, this committee has a right to seek redress, because it's defamation of our chair, of our vice chair, somebody who I met when I was 18, seated in a committee of public investments committee, Senator Ochilo Ayako. Mr. Speaker, this matter should not be taken lightly. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, I think that we must find a method in the standing orders where we scrutinize some of the petitions that come here. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, we'll be accused of doing the most pettiest of things. Thank you, Speaker.
Senator Langat?
Yeah. You should not. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for also giving me this particular opportunity to make a comment on this particular petition. In as much as I do appreciate that this is a house that should listen to all Kenyans, I want to believe, Mr. Speaker, that this particular petitioner had not exhausted other avenues within the county level and also above. This is a matter that I would have expected this particular petitioner to petition the county assembly from that particular county, or even if it was this particular petitioner should have petitioned the National Public Service Board. Mr. Speaker, we cannot imagine. Suppose we make a recommendation that this particular petitioner be allowed to be transferred where he or she wants. This particular, we shall attract so many of such kind that the Senate will not move or do anything else apart from micromanaging the county governments through starving issues like this and this. So I want to say this is a Senate that we should actually be dealing with matters, revenue allocation, which are very important, Mr. Speaker, rather than reducing ourselves to the level of becoming a Kamugunji for those particular county issues that do not attract the attention of this country at large. So I want to say that this particular petitioner be advised to use other available avenues to sort her case out. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Senator Wetangula?
Mr. Speaker, when I heard you reading this petition, I turned to the senator next to me and I said, this is the most frivolous petition that has ever come to this House. Because, Mr. Speaker, a citizen tells us he was working in a department, he was accused of taking a bribe, he was taken to court, the case was withdrawn, he was not even acquitted, the case was withdrawn, then he is gratuitously taken back to his job and transferred to another department. And then he runs to the Senate and says that is wrong. Mr. Speaker, it is something that this House should not entertain. And those who process petitions before they reach your desk, Mr. Speaker, should, I think, up their game. Because this is a matter, Mr. Speaker, at the very most, is a case of internal discipline at Tarakaniti or a matter for labor courts, but not for this House. We have very serious issues out there, Mr. Speaker, that Wananchi have brought to this House. Fishermen being abducted on Lake Victoria and being killed, challenges with security on our Somali border, challenges of workers, which are still pending, Mr. Speaker. I want to urge, Mr. Speaker, that you, in fact, don't commit this petition to any committee because it doesn't meet the threshold of a petition, so that this House can only deal with more serious matters. I know, Mr. Speaker, that when people apply for jobs in public service, they commit themselves to work in any department.
Yes, Senator Khaniri, what's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, as much as I agree with my elder brother, the Senator for Bungoma, that this is a frivolous petition, but Mr. Speaker, we must adhere to the rules that guide the proceedings of this House. Mr. Speaker, I want to follow the argument by my friend Senator Mutula Kilonzo that going forward, it is absolutely important that we set a threshold for the petitions that will come to this House. But for this particular petition, Mr. Speaker, since it's already here with us, we have rules that guide our deliberations, our proceedings, and I'm talking in particular in reference to Standing Order number 232, paragraph 1, that any petition that is presented to this House must be committed to a committee. As much as it's frivolous, Mr. Speaker, we must deal with it the way we deal with any petition that comes to the floor of this House. I therefore want to differ with my elder brother that this one should not be committed to a committee. Mr. Speaker, we have to live by our rules, but going forward, because if we continue admitting this kind of petitions, we'll an avalanche here. Mr. Speaker, we will not do the important things that we're supposed to do. So, Mr. Speaker,
thank you.
I want to differ with the Senator for Bungoma on the issue of committing the petition to a committee. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, be that as it may, if this petition is committed to any committee, that committee should take the shortest time possible to dispose it of. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cherargei. Senator Cherargei? Okay. What's your point of order, Senator Sakaja?
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Speaker, is my mic on? Mr.
Senator Cherargei, take your seat.
Okay.
It's a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know if my mic is... Okay, it is on. Mr. Speaker, the House has discussed this petition for too long. And since it is likely to be committed to the Committee on Labour, which I chair, would I be in order, Mr. Speaker, to save the time of the House by just committing to deal with this in the shortest time possible tomorrow, so that we can go to... We have other items on the order paper, Mr. Speaker. We'll deal with it very fast, Mr. Speaker, kindly.
Okay, Senator Cherargei, then we move on. Yes, Senator Orengo. There's another point of order. There's another point of order, Senator Cherargei.
Mr. Speaker, the problem is that once it is committed to the committee, then the committee is bound by the Constitution. This petition is presented by a Kenyan. And you cannot dismiss the petition. Once you have accepted the petition, then you cannot summarily dismiss it without giving that person the power to be heard on the petition. So, Mr. Speaker, you cannot have your cake and eat it. Once you direct this petition to the committee, then they must hear the petitioner in the shortest time possible. But I don't think you can dismiss it summarily without... okay.
What's your point of information?
Mr. Speaker,
Senator Kangata, please wear your mask.
And it's too close.
And observe social distance.
Mr. Speaker,
too close.
that is a member...
Yes, Senator Sakaja.
That is a member of my delegation. I'm worried for Nairobi. Senator Kangata is too close. I just like to inform the esteemed leader of minority that we're not dismissing it. We're just being efficient. As a Committee on Labour, if it comes to us, we will give fair hearing online, listen to the issue and deal with it very fast. In fact, that should be encouraged. It is efficiency, because the constitution says within 60 days. It can be within an hour, 2 hours a day, but we shall invite the petitioner and shall advise accordingly. But finally, Mr. Speaker, just to request the leader of minority and majority to amend our standing orders. Because if you look at standing order 226, if I'm not wrong, it gives the steps through which a petition is dealt with. And it says where a petition deals with a matter that is not in the mandate of the Senate, it is referred to the National Assembly. I think you need to add one more provision, Mr. Speaker, that where it is not a matter of the Senate, we can also refer it to the County Assembly, because it will probably be dealt with better in the County Assembly of Tharaka Nithi.
There's a point of order from Senator Wambua.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, my point of order is that this petition has not yet been committed to any committee. The Senator of Nairobi is already telling us how he will deal with the petition when it appears before him. Mr. Speaker, he is doing two things. One is soliciting for business for his committee and also anticipating debate. Mr. Speaker, can you guide on that matter? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Lokoria, what's your point of order?
Okay. Thank you.
Leader, you have not finished your point of order. Okay. Okay.
Mr. Speaker, I do value that information, but I just want to agree with him that the shortest time possible with the right of hearing being granted to the petitioner, that is efficiency. The only thing I was fearing that the shortest time possible may mean that is not heard. So on that basis, I agree with you entirely. And the right to be heard does not mean that it has to appear. There's a lot of material now on how people can get heard. So he can appear by written memorandum and all that. Thank you.
Senator Petronila Were and Senator Wako from the other chamber start coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to join my colleagues, but I rise on a point of order to also say that we cannot determine whether a petition is frivolous here in the House. We must continue to allow Kenyans to have faith in Parliament, specifically in the Senate. So it's up to, before it reaches the House, it's up to the processes before it reaches the House. But once it's here, we cannot determine on the floor that it is frivolous. So I accept that we commit it to a committee and let them handle it accordingly. Thank you.
Senator Cherargei, you are on the floor. And Wako will be the last one, so that because our time is up.
Thank you, Speaker, for this opportunity. Mine is to agree largely with colleagues that we want to thank Mr. Mutembei for having faith in Senate. But I want to agree with most of our colleagues that we should not be in the business of micromanaging the running of county affairs through County Public Service Board or Human Resource. And I wish this matter would have come this House as a matter of general policy and general principles where the guidance of the Senate should have been sought. Mr. Speaker, finally, I want to invite colleagues to look at Article 234 of the Constitution. 2I, it says, hear and determine appeals in respect of the county government's public service. So I think this matter, the person who should have done this should have exhausted other means of appeal, because if we continue looking at any individual case by case basis across all 47 county governments, I agree, Speaker, there could be many issues in terms of human resource, issues of wage bill, many issues that bedevil our counties. But Mr. Speaker, my advice to the petitioner is he should find a way of ensuring if the county government's public service board, I remember once a time I was a member of Labour Committee under Chairperson Senator Sakaja, and we had even reached a level of having a National County Public Service Act that would have looked into all these issues, or having an umbrella body. But Mr. Speaker, sir, is that this opportunity, the petitioner can still use the National Public Service Commission to iron out and sort out some of these issues that they might have grievances. I know they have a right under Article 41 on the labor rights. They should use such avenues to ensure that this issue can be resolved once and for all. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Wako, what's your point of order?
Speaker, I know you warned Senator Kanga.
Senator Kata.
I don't know what he's pleading with Senator Omanga, but I think your order should have been physical distance. And where's his mask? Because whatever he's pleading, you can plead outside. Thank you.
Those engagements can be done out of the chamber.
Itself, I just want to say that as Senate, now that this petition has come, we have the opportunity to look into this, but in future, I think proper verification must be done before we deliberate. The issue of saying that we give it the shortest time possible, I think may not sound well outside there, because we are here to serve Kenyans, and the petitioner has the right to be heard, and we are here to create that listening ear. Mr. Speaker, I just want to say that now that the petition has come, let us give the petitioner the attention that this petition deserves, and also see how best we can handle. Mr. Speaker, again, important to note is that as we have been discussing the issue of revenue sharing, a lot of criticism has been based on the county government. The issue of corruption, which, if you follow, is traced to the procurement department. And so many people are interested in that particular department because of many things which we may not know. And so let us give the petitioner the time to be heard, and I want to request even the chair of the Labour Committee so that they create enough time, and in future we do not need to come here and say so many things, but at the beginning those who look at the petitions can guide us, and we don't need to discuss other things, because by saying what we have said we are putting many Kenyans off, and that is not right, Mr. Speaker. So thank you so much. I support the petitioner and say that whether it is right or not, let us discuss, let us give it attention and guide the House in the right way. Thank you.
Okay, honorable senators, you freeze where you are, or sit. Senator Wako. Honorable senators, freezing means you just stand where you are without movement. So, honorable senators, pursuant to Standing Order 2321, the petition is hereby committed to the Standing Committee on Labour and Social Welfare. In terms of Standing Order 232, the committee is required in not more than 60 calendar days from the time of reading the prayer to respond to the petitioner by way of report addressed to the petitioner and laid on the table of the Senate. I thank you. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Statements. Oh, Chair Ad hoc Committee on Mess.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Tuesday, 8th September 2020. Report of the Ad hoc Committee on Managed Equipment Services on the inquiry into the Managed Equipment Services project by the Ministry of Health. Now, for the benefit of the members, it will be immediately loaded into Yes, yes. Thank you.
Standing Committee on National Security. Do we have the Vice Chair? Okay.
Chair, Mr. Speaker, sir, I have the privilege to lay the paper of a statement which was presented before the committee today. The statement of the arrest of the 3 senators.
Is a report.
It's a report, Mr. Speaker. I beg.
What's your point of order, Senator? There's already a point of order. Sakaja, take your seat.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate that there were changes in committees were done recently. And maybe there's not been an induction, but traditionally, even when you do that, you must say, I beg to lay. That is a tradition of Parliament. And then the other flowery language can come, the privilege and all that. But you must beg to lay and you lay. And
so
then now we
just
can
read what
discuss.
is written there without getting into
without
a lot of trouble.
But Mr. Speaker, I beg you do the induction soon, please.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Senator for Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the report of the committee Excuse me. Oh, okay. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today. The report on the implementation of the directive issued by the Speaker of the Senate on Monday, 17th August 2020 regarding whereabouts of the 3 senators.
Senator Kasanga. What's your point of order, Senator Malala?
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to go through the reports. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to bring to your attention and to the attention of this House that last week I wrote a letter to your office.
What's your point of order?
Are rising, and that is why we are saying we must exercise
stating categorically that my life was in danger. And, Mr. Speaker, this is not a laughing matter.